So we're going to talk today about CodeKatas and how those can help you become a better craftsman. And I like to call it deliberate practice for developers. So really short about me, I'm Straub. I'm a software developer at a company called CodeKata. And I'm very passionate about software craftsmanship, and actually I like learning in general. That's what I want to talk to you about as well. And I want to start with a little story. First off, who here plays a musical instrument? Cool, quite a lot of you guys. So I hope that will be very recognizable. So I'm currently learning to play guitar, and I found it to be incredibly tough. It requires you to learn so many aspects of the instrument, from really learning how to form chords with your fingers to getting a sense of rhythm, which I don't have natively, unfortunately, to literally growing calluses on your fingers. You need to just hit the strings a lot. And I came to the realization that it kind of boils down to one thing, and that's practice. And it turns out that we cannot master any skill without decent practice. Mastery requires deliberate practice. So, deliberate practice. What in heaven's name does that mean? So, what I actually tend to describe it as is some form of high-quality practice. And it consists of a few traits. I think focus is really important. If you do not focus on what you are trying to learn, trust me, it will be a very diminished form of learning. It requires a high sense of awareness. So when you are learning, you should think about what are you learning and why are you learning. Ideally, it should be repeatable, so you can improve next time and use the results of the last time as feedback for the next one. Talking about feedback is very important. If you're trying to play, for instance, an instrument and you do not know or how to hear if a note's off, you will not improve, trust me. You will really annoy your neighbors. Also very important is, I usually describe it as it should be slightly uncomfortable. And what I mean with that is you should really be deliberately stretching your skills. So you should practice on the very edge of what you're capable of. So still probably a bit vague. So what does it look like in practice? Well, I'm going to continue exploiting this analogy of the guitar, but some form of deliberate practice there would be like a guitar skill. So you have a progression of notes that work together, and they really help you develop a feel for the instrument. You really learn where the strings are and how to strum, how to hold a guitar pick, all that kind of stuff. And you can basically improve endlessly with those chord progressions. Another one I like is a rondo. Actually, it's an English word. Did you know that? Interesting. But you stand in a circle and you basically just pass the ball around and you try to keep it in the circle, and also that really improves all your skills like ball control and aiming, accuracy, all that kind of stuff. So now we finally arrive at us, the developers. So what does it mean for us? Well, if you think about developers, what's kind of strange is that once we're done with our educations, we're kind of thrown into the wild and like, okay, go develop code. So we learn mostly in the workspace. We practice there, we experiment there, and we basically learn on the job. And that's kind of weird, right? It's like learning how to play a new song on stage, because people depend on what you're producing. And actually, what I came to realize is that we don't really get enough practice time as developers. Because, really think about it. When was the last time you deliberately practiced what you can do as a developer? For me, it was like probably my education, so a long time ago. And why? That's a really very important question. Why is this a problem that we don't practice enough? Well, if you have noticed that today was a lot of new technologies and we're evolving all the time, our ecosystems, and our profession really demands that you learn constantly. And we need tangible experience with all the new stuff that's happening around us. And what I also think is not happening enough is that you constantly hone the core skills of development, stuff like refactoring, how to write clean code, how to design your software, how to test it effectively. And when do you train those? And I think that's where the CodeKatas come in. They are a very good means for us to practice as developers and do that effectively. And they offer us a very safe environment to learn in. So what's a CodeKata? It's based on martial arts, from karate actually. And someone came up with the bright idea to apply this concept in software development. And they are basically really small code challenges. And what's nice about them is that they have a very well-defined endpoint, so you know when you're done. They are very repeatable, and they are just also plain fun to do. So by now you're probably wondering, well, what the heck do those look like? Well, one example I really like is this. Who's familiar with the game? Okay, so I don't have to explain the rules. So something that we would have to create as a form of a CodeKata here would be a simple function where you pass the code that we need to crack and also the guess. And then the program would need to determine how many pegs did you place correctly or how many colors did you have correct and misplace somewhere. And the CodeKatas also have a very great and usually quite good definition of the requirements. Another example I usually do, especially also in dojos, is the bowling kata. Well, I think everybody here probably has done some bowling. So this would look something like you have rolls where you throw down a number of pins, and in the end you can ask the program, what's my final score for this game? So it's very important to have a look at what they also offer us, besides, well, what I also mentioned is improving and acquiring skills. They also help you train problem solving because they are deceptively hard, actually, most of the katas, and well, I think it's a lot of fun to train that. But they also help you to have an idea and to express that effectively into code. And that's, I think, a very invaluable skill. It also, I use it to teach other people some concepts like TDD or refactoring, so it's a very good way to teach others. To familiar yourself with technologies, for instance, if you want to learn something like Python, you can do that in the form of kata. And and what's also great is that most of our projects we don't get to share the code we write. Well, this you can, so you can write sort of a portfolio of things you find interesting. And also, what's very nice is if you want to try something completely different than your daily project, you can. And like I mentioned, it's just a lot of fun. So what can you learn with them? I think the most important things are what I consider core skills that don't really have any technology bound to them, like clean coding, TDD, refactoring, and software design. But actually, you can apply them in any way you want. They are a means for you to learn. If you want to learn some framework or some language, you can do that. So if you want to do them effectively, I think it's good to really think about how you approach them to maximize your results. And I think that the main things you should take away from it is that it's really easy to get enticed by getting the CodeKatas solved, but actually that's not the main goal. The goal is to learn, and you should really learn to let go of what the resulting code looks like. It's really about the progress you made in learning. And continue that. It's also very beneficial to think of a learning goal up front, so you can really reflect on, did I achieve what I wanted to achieve here? And like I said, same with guitar, you really need to generate feedback in order to improve on like a next iteration. And one way that's really great to do that is actually do CodeKatas with other people, like pair programming. We used to do that a lot in form of coding dojos where you have a lot of programmers sitting around, and that way you can really generate a lot of feedback from the guy sitting next to you. It really requires you, same as awareness, to be constantly reflecting on what am I doing, what is the effect of what I'm trying to do right here, and really apply the principles of deliberate practice. Right? So now we have kind of established what CodeKatas are, what they look like. Where do you find them? Well, I have a few places for you to look. There are dedicated sites to actually find them. I like this one kind of because they also couple it to specific learning goals. So if you want to like TDD, you can or want to practice TDD, you can filter on that. The Coding Dojo one has a really extensive catalog of katas. So if you run out of ones on this site, you can check that one out. There also exists certain gamified versions like Code Wars, and I think there's also Exorcism. And they make it more of a competition element, and you can earn, well, stuff like experience, so you can brag to other programmers. But I think they're more restricted than just the other way to do it. And really, what you can also just do is, search Google or search GitHub for the term CodeKata, and you'll find a ton of them. But it doesn't end there. Actually, it's kind of fun to think of your own CodeKatas, and I have done this in the past. So if you're like passionate about a certain subject, or if you've encountered something in the wild, you can usually create your own CodeKata around that, and then even share it with others, or host it on GitHub again. And actually, that's kind of fun to do. So with that, we arrive at the key takeaways. So in order to master any skill, you really need to put in the hours and to practice a lot. Not only that, you also need to practice deliberately, which means that you have a form of demanding, focused practice. And remember that developers can practice deliberately using CodeKatas. And most importantly is this: experience is the only teacher. You cannot learn something without doing it. Thank you very much.